Nature is pulling a fast one on us in the most brutal way possible. Up in the high Arctic, the world's most famous land predator is finding out that it might not be at the top of the food chain anymore. Something massive is lurking just under the ice, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And get this, the evidence is starting to show up in the most unexpected places, like inside the stomachs of sharks. The battle for the crown of the North is heating up, and things are getting incredibly messy. Ancient Cold Hunter. Deep in the frozen wilderness of Svalbard, a group of researchers set out to solve a pretty gross mystery involving harbor seals. They were seeing a weird spike in seal deaths and wanted to know what was going on under the waves. To find answers, they decided to check out a Greenland shark, which is a giant, slow-moving fish that lives for hundreds of years. But when they opened it up, they found something that stopped them in their tracks. It was not a seal or a fish. It was a polar bear's jawbone. This find was absolutely wild because these two animals live in completely different worlds. Polar bears are the kings of the ice, while Greenland sharks are like the ghosts of the deep, dark ocean. The team could not stop laughing because the find was so weird it was almost funny, but it was also a major moment for science. How did a piece of a 1,000-pound bear end up inside a shark that moves slower than a human walks? See, polar bears are usually the ones doing the eating, not the ones being taken down. The scientists started wondering if this shark had actually taken down a full-grown bear. That would be insane. But here's the catch. Greenland sharks are scavengers. They usually eat things that are already dead or dying. The most likely story is that the bear had either drowned or was very sick before the shark found it. Still, just the fact that these two predators met at all shows how unpredictable the Arctic can be. It is a key detail that even the biggest boss on the ice is not safe when they enter the water. This discovery started a whole new conversation about what else might be happening when we are not looking. If a shark can end up with a piece of a bear, what happens when an even smarter predator like an orca shows up? The Arctic is full of these weird crossovers that keep experts guessing. What many can confirm is that the line between who is the hunter and who is the prey is getting very blurry. Polar bears have always been the undisputed kings of the ice, but the ocean is a different story. In the water, they are basically guests, and the hosts are not always friendly. This jawbone was just the first clue in a much bigger mystery about how these giants handle each other when they cross paths. Nobody expected this to happen, but it turns out the king of the ice has some serious competition coming from the deep. It is not just about sharks anymore. There is an even more dangerous predator in the water that makes the Greenland shark look like a goldfish. These sharks can live for over 400 years, making them some of the oldest living things on the planet. They move at a turtle's pace, yet they are found with reindeer and bears in their stomachs. This is a key detail, because it shows the Arctic Ocean is like a giant trash can of frozen history, where anything can happen. The ocean's temperature in these areas stays around 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which is cold enough to freeze most things instantly. Yet these massive sharks survive, and they are not the only ones lurking down there. The deeper you go, the stranger the predators get, but none are as famous or as feared as the orca. For starters, orcas are actually the largest members of the dolphin family, but they do not act like the friendly dolphins you see in movies. They are highly trained tactical units that operate with a level of precision that is honestly scary. While the Greenland shark is a slow scavenger, the orca is a high-speed pursuit vehicle. This contrast is what makes the discovery of a bear bone so interesting. If a slow shark can get a piece of a bear, imagine what a fast orca could do if it really wanted to. The Arctic ecosystem is a delicate balance of power, and that balance is shifting as the ice disappears. The bears are forced to spend more time in the water, which is the orca's home turf. This is a key detail because it puts the bear in a vulnerable position every time it tries to swim to a new ice flow. Many scientists believe we are entering a time where these interactions will become the new normal. The crazy part is that we are only just beginning to see how these animals react when their worlds collide. What most people do not realize is that the polar bear is actually classified as a marine mammal because it spends so much time on the sea ice. This means its entire life is tied to the water, yet it is not built for a fight in the deep. It is a powerful swimmer, but it cannot hold its breath for long and it cannot dive very deep. On the other hand, an orca can dive hundreds of feet and stay down for several minutes. This gap in ability is where the drama really starts to heat up. Buffet on ice, whale feast chaos, tundra feeding frenzy, giant meat mountain, savage carcass clash. When you talk about a 6-ton sea hunter, you are talking about the orca. These things are the real deal. They are highly intelligent, they work in teams, and they are basically the smartest hunters on the planet. But here is where it gets interesting. Orcas and polar bears do not usually go out of their way to fight. Most of the time, their meetings happen over a massive all-you-can-eat buffet. Basically, when a whale carcass washes up on the shore, it is like a dinner bell for every predator for miles. A single orca carcass can weigh as much as 6 tons. That is enough meat to feed 20 hungry bears for weeks. In places like Wrangle Island, things can get pretty intense. Back in 2017, over 150 polar bears were spotted on a single whale carcass. It was a total frenzy. You had massive males, mothers with cubs, and younger bears all fighting for a spot at the table. It was a high-stakes game of eat or starve. In a matter of minutes, the number of bears grew to over 230. It was a sea of white fur and red meat. And get this, even though these bears are usually lone hunters, they are surprisingly willing to share when there is enough food to go around. But do not get it twisted. While the bears are feasting on land, the orcas are ruling the waves. This divide is the only thing keeping them from a constant war. On the ice, the bear is the boss, hands down. If an orca gets too close to the edge, it is in big trouble. But in the water, the orca is the undisputed champ. It is a classic case of home court advantage. And the crazy part is that these interactions are becoming more common. As the ice melts, bears are spending more time near the water, and orcas are moving further north into territory they used to avoid. What most people do not realize is that these two are on a collision course. They are both driven by a brutal instinct to survive, and when food is scarce, the rules of being polite at a carcass go right out the window. The ocean holds secrets that could turn this peaceful scavenging into a savage showdown. For starters, let us look at the sheer numbers. A polar bear needs about 4 pounds of fat a day to survive, but they can eat up to 100 pounds in a single sitting if they find a big enough prize. That is like a human eating 50 pizzas at once. When a whale carcass shows up, it is not just a meal, it is a life-saving miracle. These carcasses are so rich in blubber that the bears will stay near them for months, guarding the meat from other scavengers like foxes and birds. See, the blubber is the most important part because it is pure energy. In the Arctic, energy is the difference between living and ending. The polar bear's sense of smell is so powerful that it can detect a dead whale from 20 miles away. Imagine being that hungry and smelling a steak from 3 cities over. That is how these bears operate. They will trek for days across cracking ice just to reach the shore where a whale has landed. Once they arrive, the social hierarchy takes over. The biggest males eat first, while the smaller bears wait on the outskirts, hoping for scraps. It is a tense, crowded situation that often leads to growling and swaths, but rarely full-on battles. The bears know that wasting energy on a fight is a bad idea when there is plenty of food for everyone. But here is the deal. While the bears are distracted by the meat on land, the orcas are often still lurking just offshore. Scientists have noticed that orcas will sometimes follow a pod of whales and wait for one to perish, then watch as the tide carries it toward the bears. It is almost like they are providing a service, but they are really just looking for their own share. Orcas have been seen eating the tongue and lower jaw of a whale before leaving the rest for the scavengers. This is a key detail because it shows the orcas are the primary hunters, while the bears are the secondary consumers in this specific scenario. The power dynamic is constantly shifting. If the whale is still in shallow water, the bears have to be careful. A polar bear might try to drag a piece of meat onto the ice, only to have an orca pull it back into the deep. This tug of war is one of the few times these two giants actually interact directly. What most people do not realize is how much meat is actually on a whale. A bowhead whale can weigh over 60 tons. That is more than 10,000 polar bears could eat in a day. It is a massive resource that brings the entire Arctic community together in a weird, bloody celebration. But as the climate changes, these carcasses are washing up in new places. This is pushing bears into areas where they are more likely to run into human settlements or other predator territories. The drama is building because the food is becoming less predictable. The ocean is about to reveal just how lethal its top assassin can really be. Brutal water standoff. There is a reason why people used to call orcas whale monsters. Their scientific name, Orcanus orca, literally means of the kingdom of the dead.
Orcas, also known as killer whales, are one of the planet's true apex predators. They're absolutely massive creatures.
That is a pretty heavy title to carry around. These are not just big dolphins. They are calculated strategic hunters. They do not just swim. They hunt with a level of teamwork that would make a military unit jealous. Historically, sailors would watch in total shock as pods of orcas teamed up to take down massive whales that were 10 times their size. They are famous for isolating the weak, trapping their prey, and striking with lightning speed. Some have even been seen creating waves to knock seals off pieces of ice. Imagine being a seal, thinking you are safe on a floating island, and then a group of whales creates a literal tsunami to wash you into their mouths. That is the kind of intelligence we are dealing with. For an orca, a polar bear is just another potential target if it stays in the water too long. While there are not many records of orcas actively hunting bears, the potential is definitely there. A bear swimming between ice floes is a sitting duck. It might be able to swim at 6 miles per hour, but an orca can hit over 30 miles per hour. It is not that simple, though. Orcas are very picky eaters. They usually stick to what they know, like specific types of fish or seals. But as their traditional food sources move around because of the changing climate, they might start looking at other options. And get this, a polar bear is basically a giant pile of fat and muscle. To a hungry orca, that looks like a high-calorie snack that could power them for days. The tension in the Arctic is becoming unbearable as these two worlds overlap more and more. We are seeing orcas venture into places like Hudson Bay, which used to be a safe zone for bears and seals. Now, the bay is becoming a trap for both. When summer hits and the ice retreats, orcas rush in to feast on narwhals and belugas. But when winter comes back, the ice can seal shut in a heartbeat, trapping the whales inside. This is where the table turns once again. Hudson Bay is a beautiful place, but it has a dark side. It is locked under ice from November to July. For orcas, this is a no-go zone most of the year. But when they do get in during the summer, they take a huge risk. If they do not get out before the freeze, they end up trapped around small breathing holes, fighting for every gulp of air. In 2013, a pod of orcas was trapped near a village called Inukjuak. The locals watched as the whales struggled to stay alive in a tiny patch of open water. This is exactly the kind of situation a polar bear dreams about. These bears are notorious for turning icy traps into their personal grocery stores. They have been seen doing this to dolphins and beluga whales for decades. Back in 2015, off the coast of Norway, a group of white-beaked dolphins got trapped by thick ice. Sitting ducks, a group of polar bears spotted them and did not waste a single second. They charged across the ice and started taking the dolphins down one by one. The bears, who are usually experts at hunting seals, pivoted their entire strategy in a flash. They realized they had a trapped, helpless food source, and they took full advantage of it. Now imagine if those were orcas instead of dolphins. Even a 6-ton orca is vulnerable when it cannot move and has to stick its head up to breathe. A polar bear's massive paws can hit with enough force to crush a skull. Their claws are like 5-inch daggers. If a bear finds a trapped orca, it is not going to walk away. It is going to strike. This is the reality of the North. It is a brutal cycle where one animal's tragedy is another one's lucky break. The thing is, polar bears have been doing this to belugas since the 1980s. They wait at the edge of the ice, patient as a statue, and then pounce when the whale comes up for air. They drag these massive animals onto the ice with raw strength that is honestly hard to believe. If they can do that to a beluga, a young or weakened orca is definitely on the menu. The Arctic is turning into a deadly game of musical chairs where the ice is the music. What most people do not realize is that orcas are incredibly vocal. When they are trapped, they make loud clicking and whistling sounds that can be heard for miles. This is like a dinner bell for a polar bear. The bear follows the sound to the breathing hole, and the hunt begins. See, the bear does not even have to get in the water. It just has to wait at the edge of the hole. Every time the orca comes up to breathe, the bear strikes. It is a slow, grueling process, but the bear is patient. It has all the time in the world, while the orca is running out of air and energy. This is a key detail because it shows that intelligence and speed do not matter if you are trapped in a box. In this scenario, the bear is the jailer and the orca is the prisoner. But here is the catch. The changing climate is making these traps more frequent and more deadly for everyone involved. Future frozen battlefield. Climate change is basically the director of this new, violent nature documentary. Rising temperatures have wiped out nearly a third of the Arctic sea ice in just 50 years. For polar bears, this means their hunting grounds are literally melting away. They are getting desperate, and desperation leads to some very strange behavior. We are now seeing bears hunt things they never used to touch. In 2021, a bear was filmed hunting down a reindeer in Norway. This bear chased the reindeer into the water, caught it, and ended it. Polar bears can hit 25 miles per hour on land. That is faster than an Olympic sprinter. If they are willing to hunt reindeer, they are definitely willing to try their luck with marine giants. The tension is mounting because orcas are moving further north every year. Waters that used to be too icy for them are now open for business. This means orcas are now competing with polar bears for the same food, like seals and narwhals. But there is a new theory that is even crazier. Some experts think that polar bears might be developing a strategy to hide their food. They have been seen burying carcasses under snow and seaweed to keep them away from other predators. This shows a level of planning that we usually only see in land mammals. If a bear manages to take down a massive prey item, it does not just eat and leave. It hides the prize, coming back to it over and over again. This resourcefulness is the only reason they are still surviving in a world that is changing so fast. The battle for the Arctic is not just about who is stronger. It is about who can adapt to the new rules the fastest. The question is not if these two will fight, but how many times it has already happened without us seeing it. To really understand this clash, you have to look at the stats. A polar bear is a literal tank. These guys can weigh up to 2,200 pounds. That is the weight of a small car. Their fur is hollow, which traps heat and makes them the ultimate Arctic survivalists. Beneath that white fur, their skin is actually black to soak up every bit of sun they can get. On the other side, an orca is the ocean's ultimate fighter jet. They are built for speed and power. When a pod of orcas hunts, it is like watching a choreographed dance of death. They use their tails to slap fish. They create air bubbles to trap schools of fish. And they work together to take down whale calves. In a straight-up fight in the water, the bear has zero chance. The orca is too fast and too strong. But on the ice, the orca is completely helpless. The real danger happens in that middle zone where the ice is thin and the water is shallow. That is where the real drama unfolds. Interestingly, and there is one animal that even the polar bear thinks twice about, the walrus. These things can weigh 2,000 pounds and have 3-foot tusks. A polar bear will only attack a walrus if it is young, sick, or isolated. If the herd is together, the bear walks away. So, if a bear is cautious about taking on a walrus, you can bet it is terrified of an orca pod. But hunger changes everything. A starving bear will take risks that a healthy bear would not even dream of. We are entering an era where these desperate moves are becoming the new normal. The Arctic is a place where every decision could be your last. As we look at the future of these two giants, the outlook is pretty intense. Some polar bear populations, like the one in the Chukchi Sea, are actually doing okay for now because there are still plenty of seals. But other groups are struggling hard. Scientists are using everything from satellite tags to glitter and bear food to track their health and movements. The orcas, meanwhile, are expanding their empire. They are the most widely distributed mammals on Earth besides humans. They rule from Antarctica to the tropics, but the Arctic is their new frontier. As they push further north, they are changing the entire ecosystem. They are the new sheriffs in town, and the old king of the ice is not happy about it. So, here is the deal. The Arctic is no longer a place of isolated kingdoms. It is a melting pot of predators, and the competition for the last few pieces of ice is getting savage. Whether it is a shark with a bare bone in its stomach, or a bear dragging a whale onto the ice, the message is clear. Nature does not care about titles. It only cares about who is left standing when the ice finally disappears. The thing is, we are watching a real-time shift in the natural world. It is a cohesive tale of survival, adaptation, and raw power. Are we witnessing the slow end of the polar bear's reign, or will they find a way to stay at the top by hunting the very things that moved into their neighborhood? What most people do not realize is that the Battle of the Titans is not a one-time event. It is a slow, grinding war for survival that happens every single day in the most unforgiving place on Earth. In this world, there are no second chances. You either adapt, or you become a footnote in someone else's meal. The Arctic's future is uncertain, but one thing is for sure. The clash between the white bear and the sea hunter is just getting started. Many experts are concerned that as the ice continues to vanish, the polar bear will be forced to become a land-based scavenger permanently. This would put them in direct competition with grizzly bears and wolves, further complicating their survival. Meanwhile, the orcas will likely continue their northern expansion, potentially wiping out seal populations that the bears rely on. It is a high-stakes environment where every calorie counts, and every hunt is a gamble. The crazy part is that we might be the last generation to see these two predators in their natural icy habitats. The Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet, and that means the clock is ticking for everyone. From the depths of the ocean to the highest snowy peaks, the balance of power is being rewritten by the heat. As the story of the Arctic continues to unfold, we can only watch and wonder who will ultimately claim the crown of the North. Will it be the ancient Land King or the modern sea assassin? Only time will tell. But the journey there is going to be one wild ride. As the ice vanishes, which titan will truly own the North? Could the orca eventually drive the polar bear to extinction, or will the bears adapt? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below and like and subscribe for more.